Can you be successful and still have vices? This is a question that I've been contemplating for the last few years, and I've come to a conclusion a few months ago because it's really, really interesting. We've seen a bunch of people who have had vices and they became successful, so their answer has to be yes. Yet all the advice we hear on the internet is, no, you can't play video games if you want to be successful. No, you can't do drugs. No, you can't drink alcohol. You have to be different than these people. If you keep acting the same way the average person acts, you will be just like them. So, what's the definitive answer here? Well, I'm going to shed a bit of light on this, and I'm just going to start right away by saying yes. Yes, you can be successful if you still have vices. That's the flat out truth. No one can debate that because it's been done time and time again. This realization for me came in a moment where I was watching an SMMA video on how to get clients for my agency, and there was a guy in the video who was showing me how he cold calls this amount of businesses and he gets this amount of revenue and whatsoever. And this guy, he literally started the video by taking a shot of bourbon. I kid you not, video starts, I'm expecting like a fucking locked in 19-year-old in his fucking basement. He's like, cheers. Like, it blew my mind, and this guy was making a lot more money than I was, and yeah, it blew my mind. And then I started thinking, have there ever been like very similar examples to this? And there have been a ton, so many. There's been this guy, Alexander the Great, who was literally drunk off of red wine during almost every single contest. Here's an image of him if you this resonates with you more if you know who that is. You've probably seen him in your history books if you don't know who he is by me simply saying his name. He conquered most of the known world at the age of like 19. And that's fucking, like, incredible. And he had a thing for red wine. He wasn't a fucking locked-in self-improvement autist who went to the gym and took a cold shower every single day and then went home and meditated. He just kind of fucked around and found out. Now, I'm not saying that his lifestyle is ideal. I'm not saying that it should be celebrated, but that's what happened. And even your favorite CEO, Elon Musk, still plays video games. Like, I wrote, wow, like World of Warcraft there, but I'm not quite sure. I'm not really clued up on him like that. So, point being, people do play video games a bunch. So we're going to talk about why this is. First of all, like, why is it possible to succeed if the traditional advice is that you can't do these kind of things, and why it's probably still not a good idea. And after that, we're going to establish how you can still somewhat do these vices and still be successful, quite a high chance of likelihood. So this is pretty much why they actually get successful. First of all, it's because the reason which dictates success, essentially, is simply how much you work, and what you work on. Imagine a guy who's a self-improvement autist, they work 8 hours a day and they work on the correct things. And imagine a guy who's a normal guy and he works 8 hours a day and he works on the correct things, but he plays video games and sometimes drinks a bit of alcohol. If he doesn't show up to his work sessions when he's completely hungover and stuff, and he's still a bit locked in and he has some good brain power, he's gonna get the exact same amount of exact same amount of work done, because it doesn't really matter what you do outside of work. The problem is that it's very, very strongly correlated. So the reason things like these are very, very detrimental to you is because of dopamine history and dopamine loading. These are concepts that really blew my mind when I realized what they really mean, because not really did they blow my mind, but they shed so much light on things that I've already like kind of thought of but couldn't really conceptualize. So dopamine loading we'll get onto after we talk about dopamine history, but dopamine history basically means if you do different things that have different levels of dopamine to you, let's say this dotted line is the baseline here, and you do TikTok, you open your phone, you go on TikTok at the beginning of your day, and then your day goes by and you like kind of thug it through the fucking trough, then you eat some nice food, let's just continue the graph because it's kind of scuffed, and then you read a book. As you can see, the nice food is an okay bump in dopamine. The book is like a very negligible one because it's very slow and not as stimulating, just fucking ink on a paper. But the TikTok is extremely high. Like, this could be even a bit higher because social media spikes your dopamine by about 4x, but whatever. Just make sure in your mind this is a bit higher even. And the thing is, if this is what your brain understands as the best source of dopamine, then when you do this, it'll think, hold on, why the fuck are we doing that? Because the way you survive, the way the way your conscious mind works is it has a very, very good pain and pleasure signal. And it has a very, very strict mechanism to acting when it comes to that signal. So all of your actual conscious efforts are all dictated by this pleasure to pain ratio. If something gives you pleasure, it's good, and if something gives you pain, it's bad. Just think of this. Think of the way pain was invented in the first place. I saw on Britain's Got Talent or X Factor or one of these shows where a guy who doesn't feel pain was doing like incredible things to himself. They were still safe, like obviously he wasn't harming himself too much, but he was like going through incredible amount of pain, what a normal person would feel, but he didn't feel pain, so he was able to do it. And I thought to myself, and I was like, what a shit ability to have. Because although you might think it's very good to not feel pain, pain is a very good signal for us. Because if we just randomly have something wrong with our body and we feel an incredible amount of pain, it's a good signal to go to the doctor and get it checked out. Because if you didn't feel that pain, let's say an organ of you is like malfunctioning or you broke a bone, you might not even realize if it's like more of a like subtle organ. Obviously if you break a bone you kind of realize, but if it's something like you have a fucking kidney failure, kidney stones, and you don't fucking realize it, you're cooked. Like that could lead to severe consequences, and that's why it's good to feel pain. And the same thing with pleasure. If you eat, I don't know, a fucking stone wall or wood or something like that, you're not going to feel any pleasure. However, if you eat some sugary foods like honey or some berries that don't have any poison or venom in them, you're going to feel some pleasure because it's very sugary, and sugar is the fastest absorbing resource. So that is a very, very good signal, especially in the early days of humanity when we couldn't artificially exploit all of these. Like this whole thing got evil, almost like quote unquote evil, got kind of scuffed when all of these artificial substances were invented, such as TikTok, such as all of these artificial sugars and foods and sweeteners, such as all of these things like drugs as well, alcohol, these kind of things that were very, very hard to get or impossible to get back 1,000 years ago. So this is very, very good at making sure that we're safe and comfortable, but it's extremely bad nowadays because it's an outdated system, and that's why it's so hard to navigate this life that we live. So the reason dopamine history matters is because this system still exists. So this system will tell you that this is the best thing that you could do with your day. If you do TikTok, if you watch TikTok, you can imagine that afterwards it's extremely hard for you to get any work done, get any meaningful work done, because your brain's like, wait, hold on, like, why the fuck are we doing something else? Especially if you do this thing first. I knew that would fucking happen. So especially if you do this thing first, your brain's just going to be like, well, you're cooked. You're not going to do this because, I mean, why the fuck would we do this? Why the fuck would we eat nice food? Why the fuck would we go and read now? Like, imagine reading. Like, that's stupid. Like, that's absolutely stupid. If there's a much better way to guarantee us pleasure and comfort and survival, because that is what your brain is associating TikTok with. And after TikTok, if you didn't know, dopamine works in a way where it goes up and then it goes down. And once you're in this state, it's by like the pursuit hormone, you're very unlikely to pursue anything else. Your only craving will be, I need to get it back up, I need to get it back up, and you're going to be looking for the next spike. And the next spike is probably going to be something that's artificial as well, because those give you the biggest spikes. So it's a very, very self-fulfilling prophecy, and the more you spike it, the more you will want to spike it, and that's how addiction happens. Addiction, by the definition of Andrew Huberman, the scientific definition of it, is the progressive narrowing of pleasure, essentially. So if you keep doing this, first of all, you're going to get destimulated to this, so that even that is going to give you like lesser and lesser amount of peaks. Like, you understand this is getting lower and lower and lower, but also these are going to become super unfavorable and kind of sad to do. So you're not going to be able to eat nice food, you're not going to be able to eat, you're just going to be able to do TikTok. And this is how people end up having like 12 hours a day screen times. So because if they're not in the artificial super dopaminergic world, this world around them, reality, is no longer fun. So what can we do to counteract this? Well, the best thing to do is to just quit this. The best thing to do if you want to work as much as possible is to not have vices. And this ties back to the question that we proposed at the beginning of the video. The thing is, if you have vices, you will not be pulled to work as much. That's the bottom line. So if you can still work the same amount, and if you can motivate yourself so much to work, and work is actually just like this kind of peak for you, and it goes up this high, then you'll be pulled the same amount to work as to do TikTok, so it's kind of fine. But the thing is, if it's not, which it most likely isn't, then you're just going to be pulled to do this. So again, if you can somehow work and you can discipline yourself through it, or however, if you still manage to work 8 hours a day while you're still doing the bad habits, good for you. No one can tell you any otherwise, but the chances are you're not. Chances are, if you're still doing all of the bad habits and these artificial sources of dopamine, like chocolate, like pornography, like TikTok, like drugs and alcohol and these kind of stuff, you're going to have extreme trouble getting to work because it's just not that fun. Your brain's going to be telling you that this is the best thing, this is the best course of action to take. So that's when we get to dopamine loading. Dopamine loading basically is a way where you can actually use this system and still somewhat exploit your dopamine, but make sure that it's in a controlled manner. Make sure that it's in a way where you're not actually losing out that much. And the reason for that is that if you load your dopamine at night, like maybe you work at the beginning of the day, you still haven't checked your phone, then you eat a nice meal, then you go running, which is going to lead you into a trough, but it's slow dopamine, and then at night you watch your favorite Netflix episode, and then you check what your friends send you on Twitter. This is probably like not exactly what it's going to look like, because dopamine's a bit more intricate than this, but it's a good conceptualization of it. So you're going to get these higher peaks before you go to bed, and here, let's say after this line you're in bed, and this isn't going to be that bad. The reason this isn't going to be that bad is because your dopamine receptors repair when you're in sleep, in deep sleep, and also your stores also get restored, so your baseline is going to go back. So after this, if you would imagine what your dopamine would look like after you spiked it so much, if you know how it works, you will go into like a very deep trough and it will take hours for you to get back. But the thing is, you're already asleep here, so this doesn't matter that much that you're below baseline while you're asleep. And by the time you wake up, you're probably going to be at a similar level as you were when you woke up today. So it's not actually that bad. Now, your dopamine history doesn't get erased overnight. So just because your TikTok and I don't know, messages and like the dopaminergic things that happened to you were at night, doesn't mean your brain forgot by the morning. It doesn't mean that this is going to be easy. So you're still probably going to have an impulse to check your phone as soon as you wake up. You probably did that today, didn't you? There's no shame in admitting it. So this is what happens to us. However, it will be much easier though. This is a concept that is quite powerful, because imagine if you did this shit in the morning. I'm just going to get my black pen back. If you do this in the morning and you do TikTok, like this is realistically how much it's going to be. So this area, the amount it spikes up for, and the time will be equal to this area. So if you feel a lot of pleasure and a lot of dopamine and a lot of wants to pursue something, you will feel the exact opposite when it comes to the time afterwards. So if you really want to do TikTok and you're getting a bunch of dopamine and you're laughing and you're having the time of your life for the 30 minutes or however long you scroll, you're going to have probably like half or a quarter of the amount of the negative effects, but you're going to have it for twice or 4 times the amount of time, because troughs are usually longer tailed but are less significant. So this means if this goes up super high, this isn't going to go down super low, but it's going to be for a long time. So that means for the next 2-3 hours you're going to be like half as motivated to do your work, which is still a fuck ton. That's just the nature of it. So doing this in the morning especially is very, very, very bad for you. So this is why if you are to do it, if you were going to do it, which it's very hard to not do anything, then you should do it at night. So this is realistically the second best course of action. So to put this all into perspective, one final time. There's 3 things that you can do. The first thing is to have vices. These people, I'm just going to call them the vices group, have all of the vices in the world. They have a bunch of things that they still do. They do drugs, they do alcohol, they do etc, 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 and everything. They have a shit ton of dopamine in their life. I'm just going to draw a very quick graph here. It's going to be very, very simplistic. Their dopamine is going to look something like this. It's going to be all over the place, and they're not going to be able to lock in. They're not going to be pulled to do the work. They're not going to be pulled to go on runs. They're not going to be pulled to read. They're not going to be pulled to self-educate and do anything that will really propel them forwards in life. So their chance of success is essentially 0. Like, let's just say 1%, because if you extremely like your work and you're super passionate and you can still get work done and you have very good discipline, it's possible. I'm not saying it's impossible. It is possible, but it's very unlikely. The second group I'm going to call Dopamine Loading group. This group will have a dopamine chart which looks a bit like this. So towards the end of the day, they actually do the dopamine spiking activities to de-wind and unload and whatever you guys call it. And this is a bit more realistic because they will experience a trough while they're asleep, and also their receptors will somewhat repair. And their chance is literally anywhere between 1 and 99. Now this, I would probably say, well, it really depends what you want to achieve. So you understand that this is like kind of an arbitrary number. So this is between the two. I'm literally just going to write between 1 and X being their chance, between 1 and 99%. So it's realistically anything. Like, this is going to be much better than just having a bunch of shitty vices, but it's still not going to be ideal, because you still remember, for your body to actually repair and totally forget these kind of cravings, just think of any addiction. Like, if you smoke a pack of cigarettes today, that doesn't mean that you're going to forget by tomorrow that you're addicted to nicotine. If you do a bunch of heroin, you're not going to forget by tomorrow that you're no longer an addict. You're going to have severe withdrawal symptoms. So realistically, it's probably like a month or two to actually totally forget. Usually you get most of the benefits by a month or two, but for you to like actually 100% forget and not just 99% forget, it probably takes a year or two. And any addiction can back this data up. And the final group of people, the final cohort who actually get the shit done, who understand dopamine history, these are the people who get it done 100% of the time, because literally the most fun thing that they do in their day is to work. This is like, if you know Alex Becker, who's a famous CEO entrepreneur, he blew up kind of like about 10 years ago on this YouTube space. And what he invented was nightmare mode, where he only allows himself to eat like 4 foods, which is like clean chicken, greens, and rice, and very, very, very simple, satisfying foods. He only allowed himself to like read, stare at walls, eat these foods, and work. So he made sure that work is the most fun thing for him to do in his day. And that way, the same way you were drawn to TikTok in this example that we drew up, he was drawn to work, and he worked 14-hour days because that's simply what he did for months and months and months on end. So you understand how it's very hard. I'm not going to tell you that it's easy, because to snap out of it and to achieve this, you're probably not even good enough. Like, just being honest, if you actually stopped everything right now, you would probably relapse on day 4, because you need to kind of progressively overload this. Your brain is going to be so cooked, and it's going to be so hard to not do anything other than to work. So I recommend going into this, and maybe if you really want to lock in, you can, and actually make sure work is the most fun thing for you in your day. But the thing is, I don't even recommend this for most people, because we're, like, as people, aren't as high achievers as he is. We aren't built to achieve things and work literally all day like a lot of these CEO entrepreneur type people are. So just realistically, have a few vices. I'm just going to finally finish this dopamine graph. So this is literally just low every day, all day. Doesn't really spike up, and that's just controlled and super controlled. And this way, this spike, which is work, is going to be the thing that he's drawn to, because it's just so fucking low all around, and that's a good thing. So this is realistically what we should aim for, in my opinion, because people who aren't like super high achievers and super different and everything, we're probably going to sometimes use social media. We're probably going to look at what our friends do. We're probably going to send a few reels here and there. Now, is that an excuse to get addicted? Is that an excuse to use it more than 10 minutes a day? Absolutely fucking not. Is that an excuse to do drugs? Is that an excuse to go out to party, especially frequently? Absolutely fucking not. So what I recommend is choose a few vices, maybe 1 to 2. Hopefully they're not even the ones that you're very, very addicted to, because it's probably the best to beat everything and then pick and choose, okay, this isn't that bad for me, etc., etc. So yeah, you can have vices, but you should pick and choose which ones and make sure that they're heavily limited. So if I were to be someone who kind of wants to achieve high goals and not be an average person, but I also don't want to be like Elon Musk and one of these extremely high achievers and best in the world type people, I'd probably say, okay, I'm going to just watch a Netflix series at night, but I'm only going to allow myself to watch 2 episodes between 8 and 10 p.m. And I'm probably going to have like a somewhat varied diet, which isn't going to give me extreme spikes, but it's still going to be somewhat tasty. I can live without drugs, I can live without partying, I can live without video games. These don't really pull me, but these 2 things, such as going on Netflix and eating tasty foods, I'm going to be fine with them, and I'm going to have these kind of vices. We have one more thing to discuss quickly before we end this video off, and that's the question, do you think you can still have vices? So what you need to do is insert your vice of choice into here, and ask yourself this question. Do you think you can still be successful, still be productive, and have video games in your life? What's the answer to the question? Like, seriously, actually answer the question. Say it out loud, yes or no? Okay, that's your answer. If it's not video games for you, if it's drugs, if it's partying, whatever it may be, answer the question. Do you think you can be successful and productive if you still have this vice in your life? Like, actually answer the question, because your answer will determine a lot of the truth of this question. If you said no, you're correct. You can't be successful if you have this in your life. If you said yes, you're also correct. You can have this in your life and still be productive. Let me explain why. So, although there is some objectivity to these things, and we've discussed that just now, dopamine, etc., time, energy, wasting shit, yes, it matters. But the thing is, if you have this notion in your mind that if I play video games, I can't be successful, even if you're dopamine loading correctly and you're extremely locked in, but you play 1 hour a day at night to like unwind. If you subconsciously accept this notion that I can't be successful if I play video games, you're not going to be. Your subconscious mind knows what it knows. Your beliefs are what they are. You can't change your beliefs. If I held a gun to your head and told you the earth is flat, believe that the earth is flat, or I will shoot you, you'd die. Chances are you think that the earth is a globe, and just me saying believe otherwise won't change your mind. To actually change our minds, we need to critically think about it and actually be open to new evidence. But what if we were wrong, and update our current knowledge bank with new information? But the thing is, if we have determined, based on our current information, that no, I don't think I can be successful if I play video games, you won't. You will self-sabotage. You will have this thought in the back of your mind saying, I'm playing video games, though. Every time something goes wrong in your business, you're going to be like, yeah, fuck, it's because I'm playing video games, though. Ah, fuck, because I haven't dropped this. Yeah, it's going to be about this. Yeah, fuck, man, I don't deserve success because I'm still playing video games. Even though you're progressing in business, even though you're doing, like, putting work in, eventually you're going to self-sabotage. This is the essence of self-sabotage. Self-sabotage only revolves around this stuff. If you're acting out of accordance of your beliefs. Imagine this. If I told you, you need to dig a hole, and if you dig that hole, which is going to take you 3 months, I'm going to give you $1 million. Would you dig the hole? Well, maybe. I don't exactly know if you're that gullible or not, but the thing is, you probably start. And you start digging, you would get absolutely zero feedback from a reality that this is true. You would get no reassurance. You would be like, I'm digging the hole, I'm not getting shit. Why is this? The reason this is, is because it's fucking fake and you don't believe it. Even if it was true, like I was actually going to give you $1 million if you finished it, you wouldn't believe it. And we can only act out of accordance with our beliefs for so long. Discipline won't carry you if it's against your beliefs. So if you believe, I'm digging this hole, first of all. If you believe I'm digging this hole and it's not going to fucking work, even if I told you this and even if you started, you're going to quit eventually. That's just the truth of the matter. You're going to quit. And it's the same way. If you believe I'm playing video games though, and I have this deep-rooted belief that I cannot be successful if I'm playing video games, you're going to self-sabotage. You're going to stop working. You're going to switch directions. You're going to tell yourself that you're not worthy. You're going to do something that will self-sabotage you because you don't believe that you deserve it. However, if you believe that, yeah, I'm playing video games though, but I still deserve to be successful because a bunch of people still play video games and they're successful, duh. So, like, although you can still understand that objectively there is science, and science is the axiom of the universe, it's the basic laws and bedrocks and fundamentals of the universe, and yes, I will feel dopaminergically more drained, I will feel more lethargic, I will lose energy, I will lose time if I play video games, but there's a lot of energy and a lot of time and a lot of stuff to be done in the day. And if I have 24 hours and I play video games for 1 hour a day or even less, maybe just 5 hours a week, I can still have 23 hours to work. Obviously, I'm not going to work 23 hours, I'm probably going to work something like 8. But if I can work for 8 hours and play video games for 1, the two don't knock each other out, the two can coexist. Now, of course, we've talked about this in this episode, that a bunch of this, with this 1 hour of video games and work, This 1 hour of video games is going to be like counteractive to our 8 hours of work, because it's going to make our perception of the work skewed, because we have now a bigger reference point. This, if we were to draw a very quick graph here, work would be somewhere around here maybe, and video games would be somewhere around here. So our brain's naturally going to be pulled to this. But as I said, if you can like discipline it out and you can thug it out, and you can be like, okay, but I'm going to get to play video games once I finish work, and you can kind of frame it in a way in your mind where you still get the two done. Again, I don't care how, but if this is just your reality, it's going to work, especially if you believe in it, because this matters a lot. So again, if you actually think that you can't be successful, you've just definitively convince yourself that if I do drugs I can't be successful because I'm just a junkie, I'm just all of these other people who are careless in life, you are not gonna achieve what they want. I don't know many people who've achieved what they wanted if they do drugs. You're not gonna be the exception to the rule, because your subconscious is going to self-sabotage. You're going to believe, oh fuck, I'm playing video games or I'm doing drugs or whatever you're doing, and that's going to lead to a change in your behavior where you are no longer going to actually get your goal. It's absolutely impossible. If your subconscious mind believes this thing, you cannot act out of accordance with it for an extended period of time. And if your subconscious mind believes that it's possible, even though it is hindering your performance, just because you believe it to be possible, if you actually put in the work and on this physical plane you put in the necessary steps for an extended period of time, again, it will be possible, because why the fuck wouldn't it? That's the video. So the things you need to do is to actually understand which group you're in. If you're willing to sacrifice everything, if you're going for somewhere in the middle and you're doing the bad things at night and you're not doing many of the bad things, or you're just fucking around and you don't really give a shit, choose which group you want to belong to. And once you've chosen, choose the habits in a lens of what do you actually believe in, because truth is, objectively, you can be successful with anything. And I'm saying that because anyone has been successful with anything. You know, these druggy, junky fucking millionaires who've become some rock star and artist and they're taking fucking Fent every night and they're still successful. You know, these gaming geeks who are crypto nerds and millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires who still do a bunch of the bad habits. Yeah, they're still very successful. You know, with a bunch of these people, just like I said, who do these agencies and they're still alcoholics and they're conquerors and alcoholics. So genuinely, there's been examples for everyone being successful. The morality of the universe isn't as strong as you might think it is. Just because you do some bad habit doesn't mean that God's going to punish you and you're not going to get the money that you desire, or status or fame or whatever it is that you desire. So it's only your subconscious mind. If you don't believe in it, you're not going to get it. If you do, you are. Goodbye.